Hello everybody and welcome to the third edition of It's More Than Just Sports here on the Solano College Sports Network. The idea behind the show is to venture beyond the world of sports and allow the student body to talk about topics that cater to them. On today's episode, we will be talking about the students' involvement in the role they'll play in the upcoming 2016 elections. But first, let's meet our panelists. To my right, I have the beautiful Melanie Fuller. I have the ever so charismatic Dylan Collins. And to my left, I have the dapper Josh Kinder and the boss man, Brian Nelson. Welcome, you guys. So I guess we'll just dive right in. We'll talk about the presidential elections, and then we'll talk about the propositions during the second segment. So we all know the requirements for presidency is you have to at least be 35 years old, you have to be a citizen of the United States, and you have to have lived in the United States for 14 years. With the candidates that we have, you all are aware of the candidates that we have, yeah. Do you feel like our system has failed us, or should there be more rules and regulations in place, or is it our fault that we have the candidates that we have today?
Well, I'll start first. I think that really, if you're looking at the requirements to be president, people want to try to find ways so that we avoid this whole Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton kind of debacle that's gone on with this particular election in 2016. But I don't think it's the requirements' fault that we have what we have. And if you try and implement these specifications, somebody's going to fall through the cracks eventually. And then you just have this list of just arbitrary rules of, oh, you can't be president unless you have a bachelor's degree, or if you're a doctor, or just these things that would be nice, but it should be up to the American people to decide who is president or not. One thing I would say is that like 35 seems really arbitrary too as a number. It's like, I'm 34, I have 34 years of experience, but I have to wait till next year before I can become president. Like that 1 year is gonna make all the difference between me being president and me not being president. So like the age thing is kind of weird and it seems kind of outdated, but other than that, I think what we have now is just a reflection of how people feel, and people feel disenfranchised by their government, and now this is what we have. We have candidates that probably aren't the most qualified in the world, but it's what we have.
I think that America is a two-party system. It's the Republicans and the Democrats, but people don't realize there are more than just those parties. So I hear a lot of people saying, well, I don't want to vote for Trump or Hillary, so I'm not even going to vote for at all. And people need to realize you're not just voting for president. And if you are, then there's other people like Jill Stein, and there's so many other parties. They just focus on Republicans and Democrats. We're voting for state senate, school board, and Ana Patera has my school board vote for Area 6. But it's more than just voting for who's going to lead our country. We have to vote for locally, like, and nationally, not nationally, but, you know, like statewide as well.
So do you guys blame the lack of education, or is this just like an example of the lack of education that some of our youth have when it comes to voting? I mean, this will be some of you guys' first time voting for the presidency. Like, how does this make you feel, like with the options that you've been given?
Me personally, even I could admit it myself, just being more aware of politics and understand the language better. Because, of course, I could admit I didn't do my fair share of research on each of my candidates, and that could have really, you know, helped me come to a better decision of who I wanted to pick. Right now, it's a little more 50-50 up in the air type of thing, not just with the candidates and how they're acting, but just what I know about them myself and the research I've done myself. So just about being more, I guess, illiterate of politics would help, and as for all young people as well, that would help all young people just determine who they want to vote for, not just presidential, but like you said, local school board wise, all the way up to national.
Yeah, for me, for this being my first election, it sucks. I don't like the options that I have right now, like the main two options, but there are other options out there. But education is huge when it comes to politics. If you don't understand what their beliefs are for any of the propositions or what the propositions mean, you're going to be filling out just something random like it's a school test, and you just want to get it done and over with. this can affect your life in the long haul. This can affect your family, future generations, everything. So this needs to be taken seriously, which I feel like with the lack of education that we personally aren't doing is how we get someone as stupid as Donald Trump right now.
But just to kind of play devil's advocate and just look at another perspective of this, when you're 18 years old, your priorities aren't about adulthood yet. Your entire life has been going through school, through your trying to figure out who you are, relationships, just a lot of things on your mind, and might not necessarily be about politics. Like you at the most have been working for like 2-3 years, you know? So like, am I worried about taxes at 18 years old? Probably not. So I'm not gonna be looking into that as much as like, oh, this is my first time going into the presidency. And like Mel said, there's a lot more to voting than just who's the president, who's not, governors, senators, etc. But I think people forget that these aren't just numbers, and they're young people, they're young adults transitioning into adulthood. So this political process takes a little bit of time. I know me at 18 wasn't nearly as kept up on politics as I am now at 26. I haven't gone through 2 elections in my lifetime. So I think too, people need to realize that these are young adults, but maybe their priorities haven't been thinking about their future as much as like people who have been adults for a while.
Yeah, to add a little bit of perspective to what Brian's saying, I didn't take my first political science class till I was in college. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew what everybody was telling me to do. And I felt like in my heart that it was right. But also, like, in the past, the debates have been very helpful. Like, they help. They help you get to know all the candidates for all aspects. But do you feel like these debates that we've seen thus far are doing that for you? Are they helping you in any way?
Yes and no. Yes, it does for certain times where you get to see how the candidates react when they're asked these questions. And no, because when they're asked the questions, they're not saying what they want to do. So there's no like saying, yeah, there's this issue, but here's how I want to fix it. There's none of that. It's just a lot of name calling and bickering back and forth. And it's almost like a high school relationship of some sorts. It's just like very just juvenile.
And like the attention is not even on how can I improve our country? It's more like, oh, I'm just better than this person. Like, you're focused on your candidate way more than what you should be focused on, which is how to make America better. Listen to the people trying to win over states or do whatever you have to do to achieve what you want. But like you said, it's become just a contest, like a beauty pageant of some sort. So it's getting ridiculous.
And we are such a social media driven society. And you see Hillary and Trump on social media just going back and forth at each other. You see Trump saying all this stuff like, oh, looks do matter, and just degrading women. And I just think it's so sad to know that people that are running for president are this infantile. And I just find it entertaining, honestly. Like, the stuff Trump says, you would think that he's joking, but it kind of sucks that someone who is respected in the political world now is this, like, absurd and bizarre.
Well, a lot of people are saying that this election or the debate and everything that's being said about how the elections are rigged is causing the American people to lose faith and trust in the system that we have in place. Has this affected you guys in any way, or?
Somewhat. Not. I mean, like you said, it's like my kind of first election, so I'm not all into the politics as I should be. So it might affect me more because as a young person, and as most other young people, we don't see it affecting us directly and immediately. So like Brian said, it takes time and stuff like this. It takes time to fall through, but it brings up the perspective to me. Like, what does other like countries and other places around the world think of America? Just like with our candidates and how we're running our democracy and stuff like that, like, just brings up other questions of how we're perceived as a nation.
And I think the rigged question is kind of, it's like, to me, I feel like people have this really idealistic perspective of what democracy is, and then it's just like, hey, I can do what's best for you, you should vote for me, and that's not how it is. It's, I think from the beginning, in some sort of like smaller levels, like, if I want your vote, like, I can go up to you and say, like, this is what I can do for you. Like, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And then I get your vote. And so it's not this, like, flowery thing where it's just like, all right, we're going to be neutral. We're going to listen to both sides, take into what they account. What does it do best for me? I'm going to vote for that person. It's more of, how can I appeal to this person and get their vote easier? And I think it's always been that way. And just people now saying that it's rigged, I think it's kind of always been rigged in some aspects.
So a lot of people are, I mean, I don't know like you guys' opinion on the debates, but to me, with the two candidates that we have, Hillary, of course, and Trump, it just seems like to me this is the most bizarre set of debates that I've ever seen in my life, with the scandals and the women and him bringing in all of Bill Clinton's ex-wives. Like, does this bother you guys? Like, this behavior, I've never seen this behavior before, so to me it's kind of like, it's bizarre. Do you guys think that this is okay?
I've never honestly have respected Donald Trump even as a businessman. He's just, I can't listen to him talk. I can't stand his face, so I already didn't like him. No, I'm being so serious. Like, I already didn't like him. But Hillary has lived in the public eye for so long, since she was the first lady at one point, since she's been in Senate. So obviously, since so many people know her business, people are going to use that against her. But I don't think it really affects her that much, because she has such a big following of people of color and women just in general. So when you see someone like Donald Trump trying to attack her off of this stuff, it's just like, what can you really do, honestly? Like, my business has been in the public eye for over a decade. And Donald Trump, I just don't think he has any right to really bring up her business, because look at all the stuff he's done as a businessman and how many people he's disrespected. He doesn't even pay taxes. So it's honestly like, what can you say? You guys have done, like, everyone makes mistakes. Hillary's made some mistakes in office, and that's her problem. But look at what you've done. You've never had political experience. You've never had to live your life in the public eye in that sense. So what you say, you don't understand what it's like to be in her shoes. She didn't ask Bill Clinton to cheat on her with Monica Lewinsky. She didn't ask for him to have affairs. She didn't ask for him to get impeached. So Donald Trump has no political experience at all.
Yeah, and honestly, like, as I have 2 years of psych classes here at Solano, right? So I have a psych AA, and you can diagnose him with a personality disorder. Like, he shows the symptoms of, it's called delusions of grandeur, where you feel like you have these ideas that are more important than they actually are. And so really, you're debating somebody who has delusions. So how can you reason with a person that doesn't think rationally? You can't. You kind of end up devolving to his points, and you're talking to somebody who can't be reasoned with. And so you're subjected to that for 2 hours, 3 times in this past month. And so I think that's what's the most frustrating part, is that it's not an educational back and forth where, hey, Republican sides have their ideas, Democratic sides have their ideas. Let's get to a middle ground. Let's try and do what's best for the country. It's not that. It's, I am right, I have all of these solutions that I've had since the 80s, but I haven't been listened to because the political system's rigged. You know, it's nonsense.
Well, most of his supporters blame his lack of presidential competency to the fact that he's never been in politics. So they're saying that he needs the opportunity to learn how to be president. Do you guys think the White House is the place for him to learn how to be president? I mean, you teach children how to behave in public and in elementary school. Do you guys think it's okay for him to not know these things while running for president?
When you're that old, when you're his age, let's put it that way, you're in that mindset for the rest of your life. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, and he's the doggiest of all dogs. So it's just, why would you be put in a situation where you're not politically aware to be president? And it's not just that, it's the fact that a lot of his supporters are saying that businessmen have enough experience to be a politician. And what does business have to do with politics? Well, it does have to do a lot with politics.
Like the economy, it would help, but then you look at like the specifics of his business, how many times he's gone bankrupt, what he does to his tenants and try to evict them, like they have no working hot water and he just lets it sit so they get evicted so he can sell that apartment now for a higher markup. Like, that's so unethical, but it's business savvy, right? So like at the end of the day, America makes money, but at what cost, right? So it's people choosing what they want to hear. So if you believe that America needs this economic reform, we need more money to become a better country, then you kind of turn a blind eye to some things if you're looking to vote for Donald Trump, and you're not looking at like the ethical side of what he does as a businessman.
And the way I see it, if you're not rich, a white male, or super crazy in the mind, like like that's your vote. That's all Trump supporters. Like, I don't understand when I hear women say, "Oh, I'm voting for Trump." How are you gonna vote for someone that disregards you as a species entirely?
He thinks he knows what's best for you instead of you.
Yeah.
Like the whole abortion thing was so appalling to me. The fact that what is coming right off the discussion of his sexual comments that Access Hollywood, those tapes that came out. And after that, he said, nobody has more respect for women than I do. And now, if you have the most difficult decision of your life, you can't make that for yourself. If you have to have it, like if you're pregnant and you have a risk of dying, you have to have it. Like, there's no choice. I, Donald Trump, say you have to have it. And so it's just, it's so
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Like, how are you going to tell me how I should live if you don't have a vagina, first of all? And if my life is more important than my unborn child's life if it comes with medical risks. And even doctors will tell you that, in California at least, doctors, I'm not speaking for other states, but like I know in Texas, if you have, at a certain week, like if you're in your third trimester, you have to go to a different state if you're terminally, like if your baby is going to kill you, and they won't give you an abortion. They'll make you carry it out. And that shouldn't be something, like if you're in dire need of help, if your baby's gonna kill you, you should be able to get an abortion.
But
instead of risking your own life.
Yeah, at the very least, it should be your choice.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's your choice whether you can risk your life if you feel like your family needs, like you've been trying for like 10 plus years and you finally get pregnant, but then the health complications, some people choose to still go to term. And like, I think people who are, is it pro-life? The pro-life, pro-choice thing always confused me, but people who are so advocating against abortion, some people still choose to have it, even though they're risking their life. I think the ultimate argument, though, is that like it should be that person's choice. They obviously are weighing it a lot more heavier on their mind, their emotions, than an outside perspective who are just detached from the situation.
Well, I know that we're almost out of time. I wanted to ask you guys, about the Trump rallies and how people have said that it opened a gateway for just racism, just all-out racism. It's made the situation worse. Do you have any quick insight that you want to throw in, Dylan or Josh?
I really paid attention to his rallies more than just the national debates that's been going on, so I have no comment.
Yeah, I'm really just gonna stay away from Trump. Like, just a ridiculous situation. Just like you said, from the social media thing, just what he's been in the tabloids and headlines for. Just gotta. I'm gonna just.
That's
leave him
enough
alone.
for you.
Can I ask a question, Tiana? I know this is your show.
Okay.
But what does it say, though, about Hillary that we've spent probably 10 plus minutes just bashing Trump, right? And
yeah.
it becomes a Trump bashing thing whenever you talk politics, especially in like California, which is a pretty democratic state. But what does it say that Hillary Clinton isn't much ahead of Donald Trump? Isn't that pretty scary?
Very
It's
fair
very
argument.
scary.
Very fair.
The way
yeah.
I see it, Hillary, as a person of color, Hillary has made comments about black people, but at the end of the day, I trust Hillary more as a politician than I do Trump as a person or a politician.
I feel like in this election, most of our choices are being chosen for us, pretty much. We are being forced to choose the lesser of two evils. And I mean, it's a sad thing that we have to, resort to that, but that's just what it is. Like, we have no choice. We're out of choices, pretty much.
Sometimes I think if this is a reflection of America and the people, but questions still be what I feel might not ever be answered, but we'll see.
Well, we are out of time for this portion of the show, but we will be right back with more on the propositions, Proposition 55 and 64.
Hi, I'm Anna Patero. I'm a spouse, mother, grandmother, and communication studies instructor at Solano Community College. This year alone, too many students at Fairfield-Sassoon Unified School District began the year with either insufficient textbooks or instructional materials. I'm running for FSUSD Governing Board Area 6 because our students deserve the best education that we can provide. And this entails three things. First, a clean and safe environment that is conducive to learning by ensuring that your hard-earned tax dollars for Measure J are spent both constructively and efficiently. Second, we must recruit and retain our excellent teachers by providing them and their students with the resources that they require to perform their duties to the best of their abilities. And finally, we must build bridges between our local businesses and academic institutions with our Career Technical Education, or CTE programs, so that upon graduation, our students will be both career and college ready. After all, the value of our community is dependent on the success of our schools. And that is why I'm asking you for your vote on November 8th. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the third edition of It's More Than Just Sports here on the Solano College Sports Network. Earlier we talked about the presidential elections, but now we're going to focus on some of the propositions in California, a couple of them. First, let me introduce Soa Balazi here. She's replacing Dylan Collins.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. All right, guys, so first we're going to talk about Proposition 55, which is obviously, I feel like, the most valued and important proposition to us students here at Solano College. Proposition 55 pretty much extends Proposition 30. It continues the taxes for the wealthy, pretty much. And the benefits goes towards education and healthcare, which are important, especially to low-income families. So what are some of the views or feelings that you guys have about Proposition 55?
Well, since I think I'm the only one who was able to vote 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I actually voted yes on Prop 30, and so I think I'm going to, again, vote yes on 55. Basically, some of the arguments are that the rich, they feel like it's an unfair kind of burden on them, but really, if you don't tax the rich and they kind of are able to like slide on a lot of things, that's like trickle down economics, because they feel like they, with their money, can now hire people, because obviously the people in the higher tax bracket, the 300,000 plus earners, they're probably employers as well, and they would feel like they wouldn't be able to do their business as well if they're taxed. But you also have to think of the fact that this has been in place for 4 years already. Is it worth like reverting back to previous 4 years? I think just looking around campus, some of the money goes to community colleges, 11%. The campus has done a lot of improvements. We've seen buildings being renovated, the theater building, I think the 600 building. We have a nice little rock garden now outside the math building. So we've seen the effects of this money coming into the school system. So I think it's a good thing that should continue.
A lot of the wealthy people are arguing that the Prop 30 was supposed to be temporary. It was a temporary fix, but if they feel like it's unfair to continue the tax bracket for them. Do you guys feel like it's unfair?
I can see where they're coming from, where it's like you promised us this and now it's not happening. But then if you take a step back and you see that it is going to benefit the kids, like this is going to go to the colleges, the schools, like you're helping the younger generation into becoming better, more complied like students and human beings into the world. So I feel like I get where they're coming from. Like I won't disregard their feelings, but then in the bigger picture, it's beneficial.
Well, my mom went to Solano during a time where you didn't have to pay for any classes, and now you have to pay $33 a unit here. And if I didn't get free college, I get free college because my dad's a veteran, but if I didn't get free college, I wouldn't be a student, you know, because school is really that expensive. But It's just that public school shouldn't have to cost you, you shouldn't have to pay straight out your pocket, and it really sucks, and people don't realize that. Like, we're at a time now where textbooks have inflated 800%, and who can afford a $300 textbook for one class that you're barely going to use? So you need to realize the cost of education is completely different from what it was 10 years ago, even 4 years ago. And this helps those people that can't afford education out of their pocket. And it's just like, you really want to mess with someone's education, especially where California has one of the most expensive educations in the nation. So this really would really ruin some people's chance of completing school.
And it goes back to like the whole presidential stuff. Like everyone's argument is, well, you know what? There's not enough education, not enough this. But then it's like, well, you can help us. Like, you can help us learn. Just, well, yes.
But hey, maybe that's the strategy for the wealthy, right? If you want to keep the voters uneducated, then you can persuade them a little bit better. So, like, let's be real. Like this, we manipulate people all the time. So people's agendas are different. So if you want to manipulate people, go ahead and not pass it. But the other thing I think is the temporary argument. The fact that this is going to 2030 is a little bit surprising, especially since it's been 4 years. Now it's on the ballot again. Perhaps maybe some middle ground could have been like every 4 years you re-vote on it to see if you're in a good position, and if we feel like society's in a good place and our education's strong and it doesn't need all of this money, then maybe you can give the wealthy a tax break. But the fact that it's going to 2030, 16 years, right? No, 14 years.
Yeah.
Math's okay.
Yeah, math. I haven't done a math class in a while there.
It's okay.
But so I think that's an argument for voting against it if you're from that perspective of like, hey, you promised me that this was only 4 years and I was willing to take that burden, but I'm not anymore. The fact that it's 14 years now that it's a commitment, that's a long commitment. That's an entire childhood education for a generation.
I mean, but if you think about it, the money goes to K through 12 schools and community colleges, which is, I mean, I don't know about the schools that everybody else is going to, but I went to school in Berkeley. K through 12, they don't have income like that. They don't have income like a community college or a university or whatever. They don't make money like that. They need new books. They need new supplies. They need this stuff. And these are children. So, I mean, as a way to give back to your community, I feel like the wealthy should feel proud, you know, in a sense, that they're helping rebuild our economy. So I think that's why I feel like I would vote for yes on Proposition 55 because it's important. It's very important.
Well, it's not just that. Like, I remember when I was in K through 12, you know, they cut music, they cut extracurricular activities. My middle school didn't have sports anymore. So what are you really doing to these kids? Some of these kids really could have gone somewhere with their music or their extracurricular activities, and now you cut that from younger kids, and that raises not just child obesity rates, but it raises kids doing
Dropouts.
Yeah, it raises dropout rates. It leads kids to gang violence and whatnot. But luckily, Fairfield has like the Matt Garcia Youth Center and stuff like that to really help those kids pursue those dreams. But what happens to other schools in California that don't have that K through 12?
There's also the 25-cent good tax on goods. So it's not like the wealthy are the only people contributing to this money that's going into the K through 12 system. Everybody in California, everybody visiting California is contributing to this money. So that's an important part as well that would be taken away if you vote no on that measure.
And it's not just material stuff too, like, you know, books or computers or anything. It's teachers too. There's a lot, like in my old high school, Fairfield High, some teachers had to leave because it's like, oh, like they don't have enough money for this, or I want to do this, but they need me in this. And it's really sad because you see now, like, I asked my brother, oh, what class are you in? He's like, oh, I'm in integrated science. Why? He's like, because we don't have another biology. It's only 8, like, honors or whatever. So it's just like, if we had enough money for like certain parts where it's teachers, it's going to benefit us in more ways than anyone can ever imagine, in my opinion.
I agree. And to touch back on what Melanie was saying, like Solano College had to cut their football program. Like it's stuff. It affects the students more so and the teachers as well. But as a student, 55, it helps. It does help. And to take that away, the help that we've been used to, like your generation is used to, it kind of it leaves us in this situation where we won't know how to get back out of. So I feel like it's fair. Do you feel like it's fair, Josh?
Yeah. We're talking a lot about the 11% that's going to community colleges, but let's talk about the 70% that's going to the K through 12. For my education K through 12, I was at 5 different schools, and each one of those schools had issues where there was programs getting cut or not enough teachers. So I was saying, for my old high school, we now have integrated math 1 and 2 because our teachers can't teach certain courses because they're not qualified. So they're combining it, and math is getting way more difficult for these kids, and it's getting hard. But for K through 12, if you're like in kindergarten through, let's say, 6th grade, when you take away the extracurricular activities and after-school programs and everything like that, what else do they have? Some of them, they go home and they don't have anybody at home, or they go to a foster home, or like in Vacaville, there's the Mariposa Center. There's not always a way to get out of that. And if you take that away from a kid, that's where danger comes down. That's when you're starting to go down the wrong path. It could go into drugs, it can go into gang violence, it could just mess you up. And staying in with this proposition, I think could help just not only for us college students, but the future generations that are to come.
I mean, it not only benefits like the schools, is healthcare as well. Healthcare is so important, and people don't really realize how many people rely on this tax benefit for their healthcare. Like, healthcare is very expensive. You think education is expensive, healthcare is expensive. And I mean, it's important. It's definitely important. But, okay, well, 55, we talked about 55, so let's talk about 64. I know it's like a big leap from 55, giant leap, but it does benefit schools as well. It benefits programs, and but 64, for those of you who don't know what 64 is pretty much the legalization of marijuana, giving people 21 and up the safe environment or the legal environment for them to use marijuana, not for medicinal purposes. How do you guys feel about that?
Personally, I don't smoke weed, but I don't have an issue with it. Just because of you're taxing this, sure, legalize it, yeah, but where's the money going? And then when we're finding out that it's going into education, after school programs, I'm like, okay, it's all for that. But the only thing is now it's for us as the people to make sure the money gets there. That's the huge thing. Because you can say it's going to go there, doesn't mean it's going to.
That's true. That's the same thing with 55. They said that they were putting really strict procedures into the proposition to make sure that the money was going to where it's supposed to go. Like, how does that make you feel knowing that they're guaranteeing us that the money is going to go where it's supposed to go?
I just think that weed has a negative connotation to it, so that's why people aren't very trustworthy of really having that guarantee. But if you go on to ballottopedia.org, my poli-sci teacher, Dr. Joel Powell, he's really awesome. Take him.
I had him too.
And
he's pretty good.
He really broke down all the stipulations of, all the props. And it's not just Prop 64. It's he broke down all the props that we talked about.
All the props.
So you could really see the stipulations. And if you don't believe that there's that guarantee, you can read the stipulations on ballottopedia.org.
It's in there, so hopefully.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it, all the effects too is not only helping because of the tax you get, it'll help California in other economic ways of now people who are holding marijuana aren't getting arrested, they're not going to jail, so that will decrease the overpopulation problem that we have in California, and it costs so much money to house prisoners, and so now people aren't getting arrested if this proposition is passed, so you get an economic break there. And also if 55 passes, now with goods, let's say what marijuana, the effect is, a lot of times you get hungry, right? So you gotta buy food. And so those companies will get more money, and if you buy more goods, then that 25% tax that is associated with 55, that money is also going back into the education. So there's several layers to why, if it's passed, it would help the economy and education.
And not only is it creating jobs, the money also goes into job training, which is, a win-win also. But a lot of people argue that they took away something that was so frowned upon, like, no, marijuana is illegal, don't smoke weed, you're going to jail, and now they want to tax it, like alcohol. Like, how do you guys feel about that?
I feel like alcohol is more dangerous than marijuana. I feel like cigarettes are more dangerous than marijuana. So I'm for the recreational use of marijuana. I mean, with anything, if you abuse anything, there can be bad consequences. But if you can, the way I see it, if you can buy alcohol and have it be taxed, then you can smoke weed and have it be taxed if you are a responsible adult. And being 21 is the legal age in California to buy cigarettes and other tobacco products and alcohol, so why not weed as well?
And there's kind of to me, it feels a little, there's hypocrisy to the fact that the government can't tie its whatever to weed to benefit the government and to benefit the costs, but you've been tied, part of the foundation of America has been the tobacco industry, which you tied yourself to a long time ago off the backs of slaves. But now somehow you're making this moral stand at weed just because, what Nancy Reagan said, don't do drugs in the 80s. It seems a little, it doesn't sit right, doesn't feel exactly right to me.
And the legalization of hemp will really benefit us environmentally. The word, hemp is such a good product, a natural resource that can really help the environment, and it will cut down the use of, deforestation, because deforestation is a really big issue globally.
And then also, the important part is that they set an age limit on it as well. So it's not like now young people all over the place can start smoking weed whenever they want, or you can smoke a ton of it. There's a amount limit, right? And then there's an age limit. So it's not like developing minds are smoking marijuana. It's not affecting their brain chemistry. It's 21. Obviously, your brain's still developing at 21, but not nearly as much as it would be if you're 18 or if you were still in high school. So I think that is also a good detail of the prop that's important, is that it's restricted to 21.
And I'm sure there's going to be places where it's with cigarettes, oh, you can't smoke weed here, you can't do this, you can't, it comes with the territory. So anyone that complains that, I don't want to go to a restaurant, someone's smoking weed next to my food, I'm sure it's you can't do that unless it's an open smoke area. So it's just you kind of have to just educate yourself on the prop itself. It's not just you can smoke weed, at the stop sign and the cop can't say anything. You know what I mean? It comes with a lot more stuff.
Well, if you watch, I forget what the name of the show is called, but it takes place in Breckenridge, Colorado. And you see how regulated it is on the show. And these people are making big bucks off of the recreational use of marijuana. Of course, they can't put the money in the bank, but you're still making a lot of money. And I think that could really help California.
Especially since considering California is one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world, right?
Yeah.
Golden
Way
Gate Bridge, San Francisco, you go to SoCal, go to Hollywood, you go to San Diego.
People love California.
People travel to California all the time, and with the taxing of marijuana, which is important too, taxes, going to Colorado, for example, having visited there, my friends wanted to go buy weed, right? And so they went and bought it, but they had more of a tax to pay because they weren't from California. You have to show your license. So if that is applied here to California, you already have a natural tourist generating consistently. And so that tourist money goes back into our education system at California. So there's a natural income stream that would be pretty consistent.
And I think it would really benefit this area because I used to work in the Vacaville outlets. Tourist nation. Factory, tourist nation. So many people go, I don't even know why they'd want to go to Vacaville, but so, you just get so many tourists all throughout. Like on Thursdays they come, they leave Sundays. But just that, you make so much revenue in sales at stores just helping those tourists out.
Well, a lot of people would argue that the legalization of marijuana was restricted by pharmaceutical companies because they want people to be addicted to pills and painkillers because that's how they make their money, you know? So, I mean, does it feel good to know that there's an alternative for pain medication, like pills, stuff that people are really addicted to because they say you can't be addicted to marijuana? I don't necessarily know how true that is, but people stand by that. But how does that make you feel, like knowing that there's an alternative to pain medication?
To touch on that topic where you said that you can be addicted to weed, I feel like you can. It's like everyone's different. Like I don't smoke weed, I don't really drink alcohol either, but some people do, and you know what I mean? And from my perspective, I know people that smoke weed every day, 24 hours a day, like literally during their breaks, during like before they go to sleep, because that's how they sleep or so. It becomes a routine, and that's how it becomes addictive. So I feel like that is one of the biggest scary signs that like we probably shouldn't legalize weed, but like, you know, there's many ups and downs, so I don't really know.
Well, the way I see weed, like, I went through that phase where I was like, oh, I need weed to function, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, one day I kind of just woke up and I was like, you know, I really don't even need weed. I think it honestly just depends on you as a person and if you let it. I don't think that there's such thing as unmotivated weed smokers and motivated weed smokers. I think the motivation just lies in yourself. You can't determine someone's motivation off smoking weed. But I think that prescription drugs are way worse than marijuana because first of all, a doctor's prescribing you it. And so you have that access better than you have that access to marijuana. So if you're just taking all these drugs, like, that's why you see so many lawsuits for drug companies like Zoloft. Like, I used to take antidepressants, and I have ADHD, and I was, like, hopped up on Adderall for a long time. And you see the effects of those drugs on you as a person. Like, I notice the effects of Adderall on me still. Like, I have slurred speech sometimes. I can't sleep sometimes, but now I sleep too much because I don't take it. So, like, those, like, prescription drugs really do make a difference on you and affect you more than weed does in the long run. Of course, if the weed isn't laced, you know. Honestly, I don't think anything is wrong with the recreational use of marijuana because you can, like, prescription pills are really bad for you. And there's so many people out there addicted to them, and really seeing them struggle through those addictions are worse than any addiction I've seen through marijuana.
And you also have to make the delineation, though, this prop isn't about medical marijuana uses. Like, that's already legal now. So, like, the whole painkiller discussion, I think, while important and interesting in the topic of marijuana in general, I think this Prop 64, which is more about the recreational use, I'm not sure how much pain maintenance is really a reason to vote for or against it. I think that is just maybe an argument for like why you should or should not take it or use it. But
I mean, well, it was because the pharmaceutical companies did not want marijuana to be legalized.
So they're influencing
They're influencing that vote. Like, no, we don't want that because that's how they make their money.
Oh, okay.
So you take that away from them.
All right, then, yeah, show Big Pharma.
But
yes, on 64.
we are, oh, sorry. Do you want to say one more thing?
One more thing. Like, people think that just because a doctor writes you a prescription, that means that drug is safe to use. But those drugs come with a list, and you're supposed to talk to your pharmacist about the long-term side effects, you know? So just consider that.
All right, well, thank you guys for your insight on our topics today. This has been another segment of It's More Than Just Sports. I'm your host, Tiana Wilson, and on behalf of the Solano College Sports Network, we thank you, and we see you next time.
If you have an interest in a career in sports broadcasting,
Whether it's behind the scenes or on camera,
then this is the class for you.
Class is held every Wednesday from 1:30 to 4:30 in room 121 alongside the library building.
For more information, contact Greg Poff. That's me at solano.edu.
We hope to see you here next semester. And remember,
It's more than just sports. It's an education.